So this is where wokeness doesn't make any sense. Is they'll say like gay people need to be normalized, but then they wave LGBT flags at the White House, and the president is
show their titties.
Yeah, and the
trans titties.
The president's with the tranny on the White House lawn. So it's like, are you guys just like, oh, we need to go accept this? It's accepted. They're waving the flags everywhere. They replaced the American flag with the pride flag. There's a whole month to celebrate this stuff right now. That people are walking through the streets saying that we were going for your kids. We're going for your kids.
When I saw that clip, I was like, they don't want to be accepted. Like, if they really wanted to be accepted, they'd be willing to cede some ground and admit that like chanting we're coming for your kids is not a good idea. And it's like the same thing with the trans sports conversation. Like if the LGBTQ community was really concerned with being accepted, they would give up on some parts of their platform, such as the fact that, like, you know, letting biological males play against women in sports is just fucking atrocious.
But it's not, that's the thing, it's not about acceptance. It's about converting everybody to gay. Because gay people can't reproduce. And that's the reason that we exist. God created everybody so that we can reproduce. And that's why you look so happy as a father, and why that makes me happy seeing that you're enjoying fatherhood, because that's the reason why we exist. And the LGBT people, they will always resent the fact that they can never fulfill their purpose. So they reproduce by coming for the children.
Well, but they can reproduce through surrogates. We see gay dudes with kids that they adopt all the time.
That's not real. That's not real reproduction. They reproduce, and they don't even really want. They don't want kids. They don't want straight kids. They want more gay people. That's why it's not about acceptance. It's about making everybody gay. So they get more gay people by touching a kid, by putting a flag in a school.
A flag?
A flag. I became Asian for a second. Okay. That's their way of reproducing it.
I'm down for the critique of wokeness, but I don't think that the vast majority of these people actually want to like indoctrinate kids into being gay.
Well, then why are they chanting, we're coming, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children?
I think that is a very specific group right there.
I know, but 10 years ago,
the average gay person is looking at that clip thinking, what the fuck?
Is that true? I think if they were at that pride parade, one, they wouldn't say anything. Two, most of them would probably just join in the chant. And even 10 years ago when we legalized gay marriage, people were like, all the religious people are like, this is a bad slippery slope. And they're like, no, we need to accept this. But look where we are now. 10 years ago, you couldn't imagine a parade of people in a park publicly saying we're queer, we're coming for your kids.
Yeah.
And now that's happening. So what's going to be in 10 years? The slippery slope thing, they always say it's a logical fallacy. But where are we going to be in 10 years if right now in a park you could say we're coming for your children and we're queer?
I kept waiting for like a community note to pop up on that clip just because it felt like this has to be a psyop. This has to be fake. This has to be AI. A bunch of right-wing dudes who are just fucking with them and like chanting it.
They're too ugly to be
Because
fed.
you do see that. You'll see people who go to like gay pride marches and they'll hold up like pro-pedophilia signs to get a photo just to make people go crazy on Twitter.
Seen that.
I've seen a little bit of this where it's like people will show up and take a photo just to piss people off on Twitter. But I mean, when you see like 50 people chanting something, it's kind of hard to believe that that was all.
No, and they look just like the woke people. They have the titties. They dress just like them. See, the feds psyops is really obvious to see. On the right wing, they'll do this. They'll show up in like full black masks and they'll do hollow. They'll pretend like they're Nazis, even though it's very clearly that they're fed psyops. But these people that's just their ideology. That's what the plus is in LGBT. People wonder what is a plus? Pedophilia. That's the next step. That's the only other thing that they haven't normalized.
I think they booted the pedophiles out of the gay rights movement a long time ago.
They just changed the name to MAP.
Kind of weeding their way back in.
I mean, they want to. They're saying that you should be able to transition when you're 12 years old. They're saying that we should give, like, you can't vote until you're 18. You can't drink until you're 21, but you can get a transgender surgery at any age, according to these people.
I know, I mean, that's like another example of something that if they wanted to be accepted, they would take a look at that and be like, okay, maybe we should admit that 12 is too young to start transition.
But they're never going to compromise because it's not about acceptance. They are accepted. They rule over everything. The president's on their side. The flag's everywhere. They're taking over. It's not about acceptance. It's about turning the culture gay. But it's fine. You know, the funny thing too is that, shout out to Ryan Dawson, LGBT, they know that there's two genders. There's only two genders. And they know it too. What does the B stand for in LGBT?
Bisexual.
What is bisexual? That's a binary. Two.
Yeah.
That means there's two. So even in their own acronym, they're acknowledging that there's two genders. And then the one after is saying, well, there's all these others. It doesn't make any sense. What's the Q? What are the Q people? Does anyone know?
Yeah, what does queer mean?
That's just a slur. That's just like the F word with the suppressor on it.
See Elon Musk saying that cis is a slur now?
That's funny.
I was confused by that.
Yeah,
it never occurred to me that cis might be a slur.
It's just normal.
It's just the sort of baseline thing, right?
Just regular.
That's why it didn't occur to me that it could be a slur.
Can you get banned on Twitter for that?
He's like suggesting that may be the future of the platform. Although I mean, that's going to result in like damn near all of these fucking gay rights people getting banned, right?
Do you get triggered when you hear the word "cis"? I get a little bit triggered.
I wouldn't say I get triggered, but I don't find it terribly useful.
What did you see in Europe that you don't see in LA, for example? I asked if you love LA because like you're here all the time, you set up everything, like you embrace a lot of LA culture. I don't. I mean, I'm being nice right now. I hate LA. If I was not here, I would just be honest.
I'm really not outside like that. I'm here and I'm at home, and I spend very little time doing anything besides maybe going to a restaurant, going to the mall once in a blue. I don't, I wouldn't say I'm like really tapped into like the weird
culture?
Cultural spaces that might. That's why when I go to the farmer's market and I saw 3 trans people, I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to like the most bland thing that I could possibly do on a Sunday morning, and they're out here. So it's really happening. Because if I was still in those fucking cocaine den, ketamine warehouse parties that I used to be in, I'm sure my knowledge of the trans community would be a lot more
in tune.
I'm sure there's a lot more hanging out in those sort of environments.
Yeah, all the drag queen people, they do the drag queen parties, and then they take meth and do sex parties right after.
Yeah, and they keep Narcan on them so they can save their own lives if they start to overdose.
Really?
Oh, you know about Narcan?
Narcan's the revival thing.
Yeah.
But what did you see in Europe? That's why I've been traveling so much, is to see like when then you come back to LA, you come back to a woke place and you see just how terrible it is.
I wouldn't say that I saw a lot of like really unwoke stuff out there. If anything, what stood out to me, because my girl booked like 5-star hotels, we're going to like, the best restaurants in the world, and we're like, just being around like ridiculously affluent people. I didn't know who most of them were, but I could tell at some of the places that I was staying that it was like, oh, these are real deal rich people, and being here and paying this much to stay in a hotel every night is nothing to them. And that was kind of mind-blowing, because I've never been around that sort of like wealth before.
But those are all tourists that were just there vacationing at spots.
Definitely. When I was in Florence, Italy, like, okay, we are in the bar or we're in a restaurant, you walk outside and you're kind of expecting to like, catch a bit of Italian culture, and we're standing there smoking or whatever, and we just see like 20, in some cases, very attractive girls just marching towards us, and we're thinking in our head that they're going to be a bunch of Italian chicks, and then you start hearing their fucking voices, and they're from Detroit. They are from America. It's just like the most touristy place in the world that all these kids come out here to do semesters abroad. So they're all like college age chicks that are just, They're from where I'm from, more or less.
So you didn't really see any culture. You just saw a bunch of rich tourists.
Well, you see a lot of nice buildings and stuff. You get to eat a lot of good food. But I was around way more tourists than salt of the earth people. You get to talk to the maid for 2 minutes.
That's it. Yeah, that's the criticism against tourism and traveling, is that you only get to talk to like the hotel employees and some waiters, and then you don't really get a sense of the culture at all.
Yeah, totally. But that feeling you get when you're overseas and you feel very isolated because nobody speaks the same language as you. Yeah, I didn't have like almost any of that because there was so many tourists.
That's the arrogance of Americans too. We just walk everywhere and all over the world, and we're like, can I get a water? And like, let me get a taxi.
I was shocked at times when I would realize like, oh, this cleaning lady doesn't speak good English. Like, it would be like, oh fuck, finally found somebody who doesn't speak the same language as me.
That we're so arrogant and so privileged to speak English. It's just like you understand when you travel how overpowered it is in order to make money and things like that. The level of communication, even starting a podcast, like little things that speaking English can open doors to, that we don't really acknowledge until you go travel and see a lot of places. I've been traveling a lot. I've been all over. Went to Morocco, went to Spain. I was traveling like around the same time as you.
I saw that. Yeah. No, yeah, I have like a memory of meeting this girl in Russia when I went out there for a BMX trip back in like 2014, and getting along like really good with her, and then like slowly realizing we're never gonna turn into anything because her English wasn't good enough, and like we're just so limited in the conversations that we were able to have as a result of that. You don't think
it's better when she speaks little English? You have
from your perspective, I could see how that would be a good thing,
so much
because
better.
You just want to subjugate women.
Subjugate.
For me, I'm really looking for like some good conversation. Like, I don't know what the fuck we're
from
gonna
a
do
woman.
Otherwise, yeah.
What are you gonna talk to a woman about?
I don't know. Life, art
and life,
anal. I don't know. Just
anal,
everything, bro. Like,
you can speak about anal in broken English.
For me, like
peen and butt poop.
The conversation is like the whole thing. I think that actually podcasting sort of ruined dating for me.
Yeah, because you're used to such a high level of conversation where people are like trying hard and drinking energy drinks and like looking for the next topic while they're still speaking.
Yeah.
And then you go on a date and then she's like, well, I mean, it's just nothing.
Yeah, I go on a date and
That's
then it's
what
like
you're saying.
I'm reviewing the date in my head as if it's a podcast. And if there's like an awkward like 90 seconds of us not talking to each other, it's just kind of like, wow.
Why am I here?
Sucks. This is never going to work. This is never going to get any views.
That the same thing too. That podcasting red pilled me on dates and how much of a waste of time it is. But that's why I don't date one-on-one the way I used to back when I was like in my late teens or when I was like 20, 21. I would go on dates and like do the job interview type thing. Like, oh, what do you do? Are you interesting? Impress me. And I don't ever think that a woman is capable of impressing me with their conversation skills anymore. I don't
never feel that way.
There's no point in going into it with that mindset because like how many failed dates have you had like that? I've never been like, whoa, she's really funny. Never. So what I think is better to bring a couple of your boys and then they bring some dates too. You're on a double date situation. I was in Morocco and I went on a date and I was with like two of my friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. They had some girls and then I'm like, hey, come over for dinner. Yeah. And then I surprise her, like I ambush her and there's a whole group. And now I don't have to talk to her. I can keep like ambush her. Yes. Group date. I don't need to speak to you. But then it's better because the conversation's fun. When she gets boring, you turn over here, you keep your hand on her so that it's like she feels involved. And there's not that one-on-one. Like it's such a high pressure thing. You're looking into her eyes.
Okay,
like,
but what about going out of your way to go on dates with women who actually stimulate something within you intellectually?
Thank you. This is not possible.
You think it's not possible?
No.
All right, so you see it. We just hit 500K. You know what that means? That means you gotta subscribe and get us to 600K because we are dangerously close to 666K. Let's go.